Good day, I am Sujin Kim and this is PTV News Now. All hospitals in Metro Manila will be placed under Code White alert by the Department of Health starting Saturday, January 6. This is in preparation for the return of the traditional traslasyon to be held on January 9, 2024. Health emergency response teams with ambulances will also be deployed along the traslasyon route to provide medical services to the devotees. Medical personnel and staff are also on standby to respond to the patient's needs. The DOH usually declares a Code White alert during national events, celebrations, or holidays that can potentially cause mass incidents or emergencies. Russia and Ukraine rang in 2024 by attacking each other as Ukraine continues its quest to push invading Russian forces out. But much of the drama around this conflict is centered in Washington, where Republicans are reluctant to grant President Joe Biden's increasingly urgent request. VOA's Anita Powell has more.
A grim start to the year as Ukraine approaches the anniversary of the beginning of its grueling battle against Russia's February 2022 invasion. As the world welcomed the start of 2024, Moscow barraged the capital, Kyiv, and the northeastern city of Kharkiv. And Kyiv hit back, again striking Russia's border Belgorod region. But much of the drama behind this conflict is unfolding across the planet, in Washington, where leading Republicans hesitate to grant President Joe Biden's request for about $64 billion in military and government support for Ukraine. They cite concerns about accountability and whether the U.S. can afford to shoulder the burden. But the White House says it can't afford to wait.
For all the ballyhoo that I heard in the last few days about Mr. Putin and some press reports that he's all of a sudden willing to negotiate, he sure doesn't act like a guy who's willing to negotiate. He's doing everything he can to try to put the Ukrainians on their back feet, which is why it's so important that this supplemental funding request that the president put forward gets passed.
Military analysts say the situation on the ground looks like a stalemate, with the much smaller Ukraine showing great resolve against a much larger enemy.
Without U.S. aid, the Ukrainian military capability will decline, and eventually they will be unable to resist Russian attacks. Even now, they probably don't have enough munitions and supplies to launch a counteroffensive. In a couple of months, they'll have a hard time even doing local counterattacks. I think that by late spring, they will be hard-pressed to hold the Russians back. So the battle about military aid is crucial to the future of the conflict.
Russian President Vladimir Putin recently vowed to continue the fight.
We will keep doing it. You probably noticed that the next day such strikes were made, and we are making them today, and we will do it tomorrow.
This conflict has captured global attention, with the leader of the Catholic faith using his platform to draw attention to the suffering.
And let's not forget those populations in war. War is folly. War is always a defeat. Always a defeat. Let's pray.
But prayers will only go so far here. What Ukraine says it needs, now, is weapons. Anita Powell, VOA News, the White House.
A day after a top Hamas leader was killed in an apparent Israeli drone strike in Beirut, U.S. officials say they're working to contain the spread of the Israel-Hamas conflict while continuing to urge Israel to safeguard Palestinian civilians. VOA congressional correspondent Cindy Sain has the report.
Hamas deputy leader Saleh al-Aruri was killed in a drone strike in the Lebanese capital of Beirut late Tuesday. A targeted killing Israel has neither confirmed nor denied. At the State Department on Wednesday, spokesperson Matthew Miller was asked whether the U.S. believes Israel was justified in killing Aruri. Miller had this answer.
I will say that he was a brutal terrorist with civilian blood on his hands, and I will leave it at that.
Experts say they are concerned the killing could trigger a wider regional war in the Middle East and stall negotiations for the release of the estimated 129 remaining hostages Hamas is holding in Gaza.
Because I think this potentially complicates any efforts at negotiations for hostage releases combined with a ceasefire, because this individual was a key conduit in those talks. He previously had lived in Qatar, and I think was seen as one of the key voices there.
Israel carried out new airstrikes Wednesday in the Gaza Strip, while the Israeli army said it was on high alert for attacks by the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah following the drone strike. One expert told VOA she believes Israel is listening to the U.S. and others who urged them to enter a more targeted phase of the war. But Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu must also weigh domestic political concerns.
And so I do believe Israeli leadership is hearing it. I think there are separate calculations going on politically inside Israel, and particularly by the Prime Minister, who has a deep interest in maintaining his own control of the government, even though latest polls show that I think most Israelis, he's got like maybe 15% support in total from the entire Israeli population. So he's looking to appease his right-wing members of his coalition in order to continue his role as prime minister.
The Israeli campaign to crush Hamas has left vast parts of the Gaza Strip in ruins. The health ministry in Hamas-ruled Gaza said the Israeli offensive has killed more than 22,000 people. Israel launched its offensive after the October 7th terror attack by Hamas that left about 1,200 people dead. Cindy Sain, VOA News.
This is Sujin Kim. Stay informed, be aware, get ahead, and get the news right here.